Ladies and gentlemen, can you take your seats? We're starting in 1 minute. Thank you. Well, we'll see how we go. Yeah. Good afternoon, councillors, members of the public, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome along to our first meeting of this new term, and in doing so I acknowledge that this is Wadani Noongar Budja, and I pay my respects to elders past and present. Very pleased to welcome our delegation from Setagaya. Welcome along to you, delegates. And also we have the Honourable Barry House with us tonight. We have the Japanese Consul General to Western Australia and his wife. Welcome to you. We have the Youth Mayor, Sean Smith. Welcome to you, Sean. Ladies and gentlemen. Under the announcements, I just want to welcome Councillor Treslin Smith and Councillor Todd Brown to your first meeting. Welcome to you both. I hope that you get a lot of enjoyment from being an elected member and also work tirelessly for the people who elected you to this position, and that includes the entire city of Bunbury. I also want to record my appreciation to the staff and to the International Relations Committee that worked tirelessly to ensure a very successful 25th celebration event, many tours. Last night's dinner was outstanding, and also thank the staff for their magnificent efforts in organising the Governor's Luncheon yesterday. Ladies and gentlemen, councillors, we now turn to election of Deputy Mayor, and I invite nominations for the position of Deputy Mayor. Are there any nominations? Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to nominate Councillor James Hayward. I have his signed form.
Thank you. Further nominations? Councillor Kelly.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I nominate Jason de San Miguel.
Thank you. Any further nominations? I declare the nominations closed, and now we'll hand over to the acting CEO who will conduct the ballot. Councillors, you have ballot papers there. Just tick or cross the councillor you wish to be elected as Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Mr Acting CEO. You got a box. Councillors, I have much pleasure in declaring that Councillor Jason de San Miguel has been elected Deputy Mayor. So, Councillor Miguel, I have a motion to make this declaration, and if you read slowly, I'm sure there'll be lots of counter discussion from a few family members of the fact.
I, Councillor Jason de San Miguel, in the Authorised Street Street Bunbury, have been elected to the office of Deputy Mayor of the City of Bunbury, declare that I take the office of myself and will duly, faithfully, honestly and with integrity fulfill the duties of the office of the district according to the best of my judgment and ability and observe the local government regulations 2007. Declare the City of Bunbury, Council James, 47th Street, Bunbury, the 1st of October 2007.
Thank you, councillors. And I also want to record in the minutes my appreciation to Councillor Kelly for 4 years as a very hard-working and very loyal Deputy Mayor. Thank you very much, Councillor Kelly, for your dedication to that role over 4 years. Much appreciated. We have no apologies. Declarations of interest. We have declarations from Councillor Hayward. It's an impartiality interest regarding 1142. We also have on there, I think, scroll down, Jamie, for me. Thank you. Councillor Steck declares a financial interest with respect to item 1142. Councillor McCleary declares an impartiality interest with respect to item 1141. Are there any further declarations of interest, councillors? Thank you. So I'm prepared to move the minutes of the last ordinary council meeting. Councillor Cook, seconded. Councillor McGuinness, all in favour? It's carried unanimously, thank you. Do we have petitions tonight, councillors? Councillor Cook.
Mr Mayor, thank you. I do have a petition pursuant to clause 6.102. It is from, it reads, I, Kelly Despotakis of 16 Collinsville Way, Usher in the state of Western Australia, am the promoter of this petition, which contains 90 signatures. It's in relation to, and it says, we the undersigned being elected as the City of Bunbury are to support the resurrections of Ocean Close Private Estate entry statement sign which was taken down in 2012. Your petitioners therefore respectfully request the Council of the City of Bunbury to erect a replacement sign at the entry point of our estate. At the exact location is corner of Ocean Drive and Naturalist Avenue. Mr Mayor, it is a little problematic, so I hope that you will accept it. It has 90 signatures, however I think only 16 are valid, but I do seek a seconder.
You're happy with the content and you're happy to move that it be referred to our officers for consideration brought back to council?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Second, that the petition be received. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Are there any further petitions? Councillors, we've also received a request for presentations tonight, deputations from C. Paul Debenham regarding 1141. Those who consent, please indicate. That's approved. We have a request from Matthew Fenwick, who also wishes to speak on item 1041. Those who approve, please indicate. That's approved. We have a request from Planning Solutions, Mr. Ross Underwood, to speak on 1142. Those who approve, please indicate. That's approved. So, Ladies and gentlemen, for those who are doing presentations, I'll call you up before we consider the item, so relax for the moment and I'll call you up when we deal with those matters. So councillors, item 10, coming out for consideration obviously are all the committees. Item 11.4.1 and item 11.4.2. Are there any other items that councillors wish to raise, which only leaves us with 2? Someone prepared to move we adopt those? Thank you, Councillor Cook. Seconder. Councillor Hayward, all in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. So councillors, we move to membership of the Audit Committee. Now, we have, I think we've all got these sheets in front of us here. I'm prepared to accept motions for those members of council who have indicated they wish to serve on the committees. If we can't fill all committees, I'm not concerned at this stage because we can do it as we go through the year. So I'm prepared to move that the Mayor and Councillor McGuell be the Audit Committee representatives. Thank you, Councillor McGuinness. Seconder. Councillor McCleary. Are there any further nominations?
Yes, sir. I'd like to continue on that committee.
Councillor Steck. Any further nominations? Councillor McGuinness and Councillor McCreary, are you happy to include Councillor Steck in your... You're fine with that? All in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. They're elected. The Roadwise Committee, we have Councillor Steele. Are there any further nominations to the Roadwise Committee? Someone prepared to move that Councillor Steele be appointed. Councillor McCleary, seconder. Councillor McGuinness, all in favour? That's carried. Thank you. CEO Performance Review Panel, we have more nominations than vacancies, so we have the forms again, Councillor, so please complete 4 crosses. Oh, Councillor McGuell?
I'm happy to.
You're withdrawing?
And I also have to withdraw.
Councillor Steele, we still have more nominations than vacancies. You're right.
As the Mayor, you're entitled to sit on the committee if you serve.
Yeah. The acting CEO is pointing out that you don't have to vote me in because I'll sit on it automatically. So we're looking at 3 other nominations, and use your ballot papers to indicate which ones you want on that committee. The CEO will be assisted. 3 more, yep. I apologise for this, ladies and gentlemen, but we do this every 2 years and it's an important process, so bear with us.
Mr Mayor, Councillors McGuinness, Hayward and McCleary.
Thank you. Can I have someone move those be appointed, please? Councillor Miguel, seconder. Councillor Cook, all in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Next is the Disability Access and Inclusion Committee. Are there any further nominations to that committee? Councillor Steck.
Yes, sir.
And I will nominate.
Thank you, Councillor Steele. Any further nominations? Someone prepared to move that Councillors Kelly, Steck and Steele be appointed. Thank you, Councillor McGuinness, and Councillor Cook, seconded. All in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Heritage Advisory, we have 3 nominations for 2 positions.
I'm happy to be a proxy for this.
Thank you. Are there any further nominations? Can someone move that Councillors Kelly and Smith be appointed with Councillor Steele as proxy? Thank you, Councillor McCleary. Thank you, Councillor Cook. Seconded. All in favour? That's carried. Thank you. The International Relations Committee. Any movements at the station, withdrawals, or everyone happy to? We have 4 nominations for 2 positions. Are there any further nominations? Thank you again. We'll just please select the 2 that you'd like to be appointed. Yeah, actually, Monique asked me the same question. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
We have 1 clear nominee and a tie so we'll need to have a second vote between Councillor Hayward and Councillor Smith.
Okay, so councillors, we have a tie we have Councillor McGuinness clearly preferred, and we have Councillor Hayward and Councillor Smith on a tie. So would you please indicate which of Councillor Hayward and Smith?
I'm happy to withdraw at this point.
You're happy to withdraw. Thank you. Someone prepared to move that we appoint those councillors? Thank you, Councillor Cook. Seconded, Councillor McCleary. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
Mr Mayor, that include the community members?
Yes,
Thank you.
the community members are there as listed. Policy Review and Development Committee. Any further nominations? Someone prepared to move that? Councillor McGuinness, seconder. Councillor Cook, all in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. Youth Advisory, which is a non-voting role. Councillors Brown and Morris have nominated. Any further nominations? Someone prepared to move that? Thank you, Councillor McCleary. Councillor McGuinness, all in favour? That's carried, thank you. Bunbury Asset Working, these are working groups now, advisory groups, so Councillor McGuell and myself. Anyone else want to be part of that? Someone prepared to move? Let's have Councillor Cook take a seat. No, seriously. Councillor Cook, Councillor McGuinness, all in favour? Carried. Thank you. The Event Advisory Group. Any further nominations for that one?
Yes,
Councillor
please.
Steck? So Councillors Warnock, Steele and Steck. Any further nominations? Someone prepared to move? Councillor Steck, Councillor McCleary. All in favour? That's carried. Thank you. The Stakeholder Engagement and Marketing Working Group, there's no reason to limit those numbers. Councillor Hayward?
So I was happy to offer to be a proxy.
Proxy? Any further nominations? So can I have someone move that Councillors Warnock, McGuinness be appointed and Councillor Hayward proxy? Councillor Steele, thank you. And Councillor Cook, thank you. All in favour? That's carried, thank you. The next one is the... You okay there, Jamie?
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I still need to include you in that
Yep.
previous.
Mayor and councillors, yeah. Thank you. We sweet? So we're up to the Community Assistant Grant Funding Panel. We have nominations from Councillors McCleary and Smith. Any further nominations?
Yes, sir.
Councillor Steck? Any further? Someone prepared to move those three be appointed? Thank you, Councillor McGuell. Seconded, Councillor Cook. All in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Arts Development Grant Funding Panel. We have nominations from Councillor McCleary and Smith. Further nominations? Councillor Steele. Thank you. Anyone else? Someone prepared to move those three? Thank you, Councillor Cook. Thank you, Councillor Steck. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Placemaking Grant Funding Panel. We have Councillors Morris, McCleary and Steele. Any further nominations? Someone prepared to move those three be appointed? Councillor Steck, Councillor McGuell, all in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Bunbury Harvey Regional Council, we have Councillors Cook, McCleary and Hayward. Any further nominations?
I'm happy to move myself as a proxy as well.
You're,
I'll swap. I don't mind swapping.
I'm happy to stay on the proxy team,
so
so.
I think we've sorted it out that Councillors Cook, McCleary and Hayward with Councillor McGuell as a proxy. Someone prepared to move that way? Councillor Steck, Councillor McGuinness, all in favour? That's carried. The Local Emergency Management Committee. Councillor Smith, any further nominations? Can I have someone move that? Thank you, Councillor Cook. Seconder. Councillor Steck, all in favour? That's carried, thank you. Bunbury Theatre, Regional Theatre. Any further nominations to Councillor Kelly?
I'm happy to continue as a proxy.
Sure. Any further nominations? So I'm prepared to move that Councillor Kelly be appointed with Councillor Steele as a proxy, Councillor Cook and Steck. All in favour? It's carried. Welga Zone meeting, we have Councillor Smith nominating. Further nominations? Thank you. So I'm prepared to move that way. Councillor Kelly? And fine. So Councillor Kelly, we're moving Councillor Smith be appointed with Councillor Steck as a proxy. Seconder, Councillor McCleary, I think it was. All in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Southwest Regional Road Group. Any further nominations? Yep. Can I have someone move that Councillor McCleary be appointed with Councillor Steele as proxy, please? Thank you, Councillor Cook. Second to Councillor Hayward. All in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Bunbury Alcohol Accord. We're looking
I'm
for
happy to keep working on that committee, sir.
Councillor Steck. Any further? Councillor Warnock. Any further nominations? We'll just tick on the box who you prefer there. Councillor Steck and Warnock.
Sir, I'm happy to just be a proxy.
Thank you. So I'm prepared to move that Councillor Warnock be appointed with Councillor Steck as proxy. Thank you, Councillor Cook. Councillor McCleary, all in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Meals on Wheels and Senior Citizens Management Committee. Councillor Smith is nominated. Any further nominations? Someone prepared to move that way? Thank you, Councillor Cook. Seconder. Councillor Steck, all in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Bunbury Port Liaison Committee. Councillor Warnock is nominated with the proxy being the CEO or delegate. Someone, yes, move that way. Councillor Cook, Councillor Hayward, all in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Dolphin Discovery Centre Management Committee. We have 2 nominations for 1 position. So please indicate on. Would you be happy to be a proxy?
Yes, I am.
So we have Councillor Morris and Councillor McGuinness as his proxy. Someone prepared to move that way? Thank you, Councillor Cook. Seconder, Councillor Steele, all in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Morrissey Homestead. We have Councillor Smith nominating. Any further nominations for that? Someone prepared to move that way? Councillor Cook, Councillor McCleary, all in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. The Southwest Women's Health Information Centre Management Committee. We don't have any nominations.
Sorry, sir, I'm happy to go
You
to that
happy to do
committee.
that? Thank you, Councillor Steck. Anybody else? With Councillor McCleary as proxy. Thank you. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor McGuinness, seconder. Councillor Steck, all in favour? That's carried unanimously. The Parent Naturalist Partnership, we have Councillor Smith. Any further nominations? Prepared to move that way? Councillor Cook, seconder. Councillor Steck, all in favour? It's carried. The Worsley Community Liaison Committee, Councillor McGuinness is nominated. Any further nominations? With Councillor Steck as proxy. So I'm prepared to move that way. Councillor McCleary, Councillor McGuell, all in favour? That's carried unanimously. Councillors, thank you very much for that. That was terrific. So 11.4.1. Mr. Paul Debenham, are you in the present? Just come forward to the lectern here, please, Paul. You have 5 minutes, and there's a clock in front of me here to guide you.
No problems. I'll be as brief as I possibly can.
Point of order. Yeah. (11.3) and 11.4.
Hear that because there's no speaker on.
I'll check with the acting CEO while Mr. Debenham gives his presentation. Welcome. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Brennan and councillors. My name's Paul Debenham, as the Mayor just said, and I own Unit 83 Harrison Place and have done since 1984. Obviously, it was a vacant block in front of it, and we always knew one day there'd be a development there, and that's not the issue that we've got here. Maybe the lack of consultation with the developers, because we had very, very little consultation at all with them. I don't know if the council's all said, we'll get to see what I'm talking about. Have you actually seen that? Yeah, so looking through the R codes and the legalities of it, the actual structure was originally designed at 2.4 metres over the R codes of 7 metres high. They reduced that by 0.45, which still puts it 1.95 metres above the 7 metres in your R code. In the consultation of it, of the units of 8 that we're in, only 3 of us were sent letters for consultation or objection to it. They deemed that the other 5 obviously didn't count, and yet down in Greensell Street, behind the Hungry Howler, the block of units there, all 24 people were sent it. The person that owns the unit down just in front of Greensell Street wasn't. So it's almost like people were picked who weren't going to object or maybe wouldn't have had the impact on it. Personally, our property will be the highest impacted on it, with the structure they intend to build. And it's the third story that really we're worried about. I mean, the rest of it is not too bad, but it's just that top part on top of it which has been plonked on there. And in the building plan, it hasn't got an ensuite or anything. I wondered today, reading with the cutting back on the funding for the rescue helicopter, they might be going to do shark spotting of it, because that's what it looks like. It's an eyesore from the street. It doesn't conform with the rest of the area, for starters. As I said, I'm concerned that if they'd come to us or had some consultation, it would have been really nice. So the proposal will significantly affect the residential amenity of properties at 1C Harrison Place, 15 Greensell, which is down the bottom, 10 William Street, by means of the overbearing height, the length of the walls along the northern, western and southern boundaries. I'll go back a stage. When some 11 years ago, miraculously all of a sudden they started excavating the block and putting up retaining walls. It turned out that that was done without council approval, without engineering. So hence the stall from that period to now, where they couldn't get an engineering certificate on the walls, which I would really like to see an engineering certificate on, after seeing the construction of them, and even the way the wall, the bow and the wall on the eastern side. So it went 12 years, and somehow along the way now, they must have got an engineering approval. I'm sure you guys wouldn't have given a building or even looked at this without seeing that side of it, and I'd like to see a copy of that as well, to see how that went through, because it was just so shonkily done, and again, without any consultation way back then. The design of the dwelling being built up to more than one side of the boundary will adversely impact the streetscape. So from the street, you can see that great big building. And also the context of the neighbourhood. So, I mean, it doesn't, the actual building, I know we've got to modernise, but it doesn't sit in context with the actual surrounding building properties that are there now. The site of the second story element affects the streetscape of obviously William Street, and obviously the adverse effect of the views from the 3 Harrison Place units. There's inadequate visual truncation on the proposed driveway and the common access way, which has a negative impact on the pedestrian and vehicle safety. The visual privacy of the residents at 15 Greensell Street and 1C Harrison Place will be negatively affected by the proposal due to the overlooking balconies on 1 and 2 side 1 and 2. The proposed dwelling is clearly grossly in exceedance of the required standards in numerous aspects of both the deemed to comply provisions and the design principles of the residential design codes. Individually and collectively, these present a convincing case that the application for the development or approval should not be supported by the City of Bunbury, and we respectfully request that this application be refused. The proposal could be made more acceptable if the second story element was removed, it's the box on top, and completely, and the dwelling was set back from the side boundaries by the required distance as set down in the R codes, of at least one side. However, there would be significant issues of overlooking that would be the outcome. Is it setting a precedent now where we just forget about the R codes and then anyone can come to you next time and say, well, hang on, you passed that one and let them go over the design code height, so now we want to build one exactly the same height beside it. I've got 13 seconds left, but I think you can tell that I'm not good at public speaking. I haven't really cared too much for it, but I respectfully hope that you guys have a real good look at this, and also those retaining walls. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You've done a good job public speaking, Mr. Debenham. I now invite Mr Matthew Fenwick to come forward. So Matthew, the same rules apply. 5 minutes, thank you.
Sure. Good afternoon. I'm Matthew Fenwick. I work at Veens Design Group, and I've had the lead design and drafting role on this project at Harrison Place so far. Veens Design Group has got 39 years experience throughout the southwest and northwest in doing these sorts of projects, and making sure that we get a suitable solution for everyone. The site is obviously split level. It's a very unique site with that 3 metre high, 2.98 metre high retaining wall. That creates some issues or challenges that we needed to solve. And we believe we've done that in a manner which alleviates a lot of the issues. So from the very get-go, we designed this house to have the minimum impact on neighbours as we could. Yes, there is a third-storey addition to the top floor. We minimised that to just the main bedroom and the walk-in room with the ensuite removed to the ground floor. This was to minimise that floor space on that top floor to 38 square metres. We've located that on the southern boundary, central to the project. This allows little to no overshadowing on the neighbouring car park, which you'll see if you refer to some of those plans that have been in the agenda and so on. The height is a very contentious issue, as you've seen, and was one of the key factors in a lot of the objections that we received. Due to the 3 metre high wall and the split level, the unique site, that did force that ground floor to be a lot higher than what was preferred at first. That's what the site's given us, and that's what we must work with. Our third story, you'll find if you refer to, I believe it's A012 off the top of my head, is actually at the same level as the neighbouring side building to the east, which is, I believe is the set of 8 units. So we're actually at the same level as them. If you also refer to the sightline drawings, which are A013, you'll find that we're not actually in their main sightline, their primary sightline. You'll find that we are tucked in the corner, central to the rest of the block, next to the 3 other strata blocks that are with us. We do affect one neighbour that's on the southern and then to the east as well. That's the only neighbour where our sightline is in their way. But again, we reduced our building area on that third floor to 38 square metres to really alleviate any issue that we're causing there. And again, the overshadowing is purely on the car park. The setbacks issue has been raised here and it is in the form, in the agenda. Due to the width of the site, we felt it was necessary to pull both sides of the buildings through to that boundary. In doing so, we have come across these R-code requirements, but at the end of the day, the councillors, that's the planning department, have recommended this for approval. We did have previous sign-off from the neighbours next door due to changes in plans. That's no longer there, but they did not object to the proposal due to the setbacks. This again goes for privacy, so you'll refer to those privacy drawings that were completed. There's minor overlooking on neighbouring blocks. Again, those neighbours did not complain about the issue of privacy there. We're screening the majority of overlooking, and the small areas that we are, they have not complained. And again, in fact, previously they were signed off, but due to the changes, minor changes to the plans, that's no longer current. I would like to note that the majority of objections listed for overlooking, setbacks, privacy are actually from lots that aren't affected by those items. So they're complaining objecting on behalf of others, which I do understand, that's for sure, but their lot is not directly affected by those issues. Sight lines I've covered. The southern neighbours, the large apartment blocks to our sides, their views are directly west. We're not in their views, and we're not in their direct sunlight paths, which you'll see if you refer to those plans. In regards to precedence, and this is one of the larger issues, again, that's been raised throughout all the objections, we're applying for DA for Lot 4. We're applying for 1D. We are not applying the same building to all 3 lots. So I'd just like you to consider that based on this. It is the one lot. All 3 of the others will be looked at and assessed based on themselves. And yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Matthew. Councillors, the executive recommendation is there. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor McGuinness. Is there a seconder?
Yes,
Councillor Steck. Councillor McGuinness.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'd just like to speak in support of this application. I've had a good look through it and I think that they've done a good job. I think the Speaker just now has outlined many things that I agree with. I think this is a unique block. I've spent some time looking over these blocks and speaking to several real estate agents in town about it, that it's a site that is troublesome, but one that's been, that real estate agents have been saying, can we develop this site for many years now? I think we need to be pro-development, and we really are trying to look at where we can develop and build new homes in town. I think they've done a great job of trying to minimise the impact. I really do. If you look at the recommendation, although our officers have recommending that we approve it, there's 14 conditions on there, and I think they very well outline some of the concerns, and I think that we have to trust our planning department to try and support applications like this. I think there's a compromise position that we've reached, and I'd urge you to support it as it stands.
Councillor Steck.
Thank you, sir. Given that Council has spent at least 4 years in our key working documents, or maybe more, for Scheme 8, there has been considerable change in and even modelling of the council and the footprint of the entire city. If we're looking at precedent set, we've already had a precedent set of buildings like this, or lots of land like this. They've been in Marsden Hill, they've been in Mindelong Heights, and they will continue because Bunbury does have a hilly aspect to it in other areas. I am also not concerned too much in this because as part of the conditions set, there will be plenty of screening so that the neighbours won't have such a visual impact into their yard, if that's what the main concern is, because through you, Mr Mayor, in all the years I've sat on this council, the main concern in any building has been a visual aspect of who can see in someone's backyard. And the other consideration I would say is that our staff will have to give them an occupancy certificate. So if anything doesn't conform, they won't get it.
Speaker against. Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. After having spent 10 years in this chamber, one of the first questions I asked of any of these development applications is what do the neighbours think? And in this case, the neighbours have come out and said they've got objections, 13 of them. They do so on the fact that this doesn't conform, the residential design codes are not met, and I think the third biggest one I've just stated, the neighbours are unhappy. I think looking at this particular application, what is a minor inconvenience and what is a major inconvenience can be quite subjective to somebody who is in the planning business, but for the neighbours who live with it 24/7 and permanently, there is a difference as to how they see it. I feel that the development should proceed in some form. There's no doubt about that. That's what this lot is for. But I also feel that there is room for more compromise if the developers can get together with the neighbours, perhaps over the back barbie. Might be a good idea. Again, Mr Mayor, it's always a case of asking what the neighbours think, and I think that this one should be brought down in the negative so that there is some room for compromise to be found. So I ask councillors to vote against the executive recommendation, and it would follow then that I think that our staff can negotiate with the developers and get the neighbours together to see if they can work out a further compromise, one that hasn't been reached as yet. Thank you.
Speaker 4. Councillor McGuinness to close.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I don't have a lot else to say other than just to reiterate that I think our Speaker tonight talked about how the impact of view, I think they've demonstrated really well in A013, the drawings, I'm sure everyone's looked at them, how the views will be impacted on the surrounding neighbours, and I think they really are minimal, and I think that I understand and I agree with Councillor Kelly that we do need to listen to neighbours, but I think in this case a lot of those objections have come from the neighbours in the units to the side, and as we've heard tonight, the impact on them will be quite minimal. So look, I would ask people to support it as it stands.
Thank you. All in favour, please indicate. Those against? That's carried. You want your name recorded against, Councillor Cleary, Councillor Steele, Councillor McGuell, Councillor Smith and Kelly. Thank you. Councillor Steele, thanks. Mr Underwood. Thank you, Ross. You know the 5-minute.
Thank you, Mr Mayor and councillors. Good evening, konbanwa. I'd like to extend a welcome to the new councillors here as well. I thank the council for its endeavours over the last 2 months or so in relation to this particular application and the solution-oriented approach which has been taken so far. I can confirm that conditions 24 and 25 of this matter, we intend to appeal if they are imposed on the approval. I've been provided with a copy of the city's legal advice on this matter, and notwithstanding that doesn't affect our position in relation to those 2 conditions. When it became apparent several weeks ago that the city's officers intended to impose these 2 conditions, I asked and suggested that we take this matter to council because I saw that it was important to give council an opportunity to oversee the decision that was being made and to provide a chance to step in and to consider and remove these 2 conditions in order to avoid the alternative, which was to head straight to an appeal, spending time and money on both parties in going through that particular avenue. So I'm pleased that Council has given us a couple of opportunities already to discuss and consider these 2 conditions. We ask today that this application is approved with conditions 24 and 25 deleted. And in doing so, I just want to talk about 3 matters in particular in relation to this. Firstly, Councillor Hayward's motion at the last meeting was to modify the truncation condition to 3 metres. While we would support a 3-metre truncation, we would not support what the officers have proposed and have circulated, which is a restrictive covenant effectively imposing a de facto 6-metre truncation on the property. It amounts to the same thing as a 6-metre truncation, and we certainly wouldn't support that. The second point, you may have seen the officers have supported a roundabout plan or a plan showing a roundabout at the intersection of Spencer and Cornwall Streets. This is something which hasn't been properly considered by council. It hasn't gone out for consultation. Our view is that it's not a determined or final proposal, but rather something which has been put together in the short term. There are also potential issues with that particular plan and other alternatives that may resolve, or perhaps an alternative intersection design in that location. Our view is that if council were in the future to finalise and endorse a intersection plan, then at the appropriate time council could go through the normal compulsory acquisition procedures and acquire any land that it may require in order to implement that intersection design. My final point relates to the footpath. One of the conditions is to impose a 50% contribution to the footpath, of course. I make the point this is not a new footpath. It is an existing footpath that is already in place. It's in serviceable condition. You can walk up and down it. I'm also aware that there have been several developments approved in the area that have not had a footpath upgrade condition imposed on them. It's perhaps a separate matter to say Edward Street and the Audi, where there was not an existing footpath. There was a requirement, of course, to put in a brand new one because there wasn't an existing path in place in that particular location. So, in conclusion, we appreciate the consideration that has been given by Council over the last 2 months on this particular matter. I feel it's time to draw this issue to a close, and we respectfully request that the Council approve this application tonight, subject to conditions 24 and 25 being deleted. I thank you for your consideration. Arigato gozaimashita.
Thank you, Mr Underwood. Councillors, we have a process to go through. The first one is that we agree that debate recommence. Can I have someone move that way, please? Councillor Cook, seconder. Councillor McCleary, all in favour? You have to vote each time. Those against? That's carried unanimously. So we now go to an amendment, which is where we left the debate last time, and the amendment was as is on the screen now. So I invite Councillor Hayward to speak to that amendment.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. Is that in, just a quick question for you, Mr Mayor, is that in relation to the right of reply at the end of debate, or are we resuming debate midway through?
This is an amendment to the original motion.
So I've spoken to that already at a previous council meeting, but we have got new members, so... It is
yes, I'm inviting you now to speak
Thank
to
you.
the amendment, which is to have the 3 metre truncation considered by council.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. Councillors, thanks for considering this. The 3 metre truncation, of course, is half of what our city staff are saying, but it is quite a perplexing one. I don't know if you've been down and had a look at the intersection yourself. I certainly have, and there are a couple of issues that cause me concern. The first is that the plan that our city staff have put forward in relation to a roundabout cannot be put into place without knocking down the building on the other side, or certainly removing part of that building. We've asked previously whether there were any plans for that building to be renovated or to have any work done to it, and we've been told that there are none. So we have a situation where we're putting what I feel is a very unfair impost against a neighbouring landowner on the basis that at some point in time there may be a need to build a roundabout that will require the other building to be demolished or partly demolished. That to me doesn't strike me as being a very fair arrangement. The other is the sightline issue is a very interesting one, and if you go down to the corner, the actual danger point is looking to the right, not looking to the left, or not vehicles coming down the road. Now, I'm no expert and don't propose to be one in this regard, but I did go down and have a look for myself. So if you can imagine that you're pulling up to a corner and you've got a building that's built right up to the roadside, you do not have sightline around that corner. That's where the potential danger is. There may be other treatments, perhaps a no right turn sign where it only allows people to turn left, that actually could improve the safety of that corner without the need for a roundabout. Again, I'm not an expert in these things and don't propose to be one, but it does strike me as being an unusual arrangement. The reason I've proposed the 3 metres and not 6 is because I believe it's a halfway there negotiation, if you like. It doesn't provide to the proponent exactly what they're after, and it doesn't provide our staff exactly what they're after. But it does provide an opportunity, I hope, for us to avoid expensive time in SAT, where win or lose, I'm not sure that we want to die in the ditches over this particular 3 metres. I think that it would be better to try to negotiate. And in actual fact, we did send a message back to our staff that was our preference for a negotiated outcome to be found. But unfortunately it hasn't been. So now this is the 3rd meeting it's come to us. I think that's a bit unfair too on the proponent. I'd like to see us do that a bit better. I think it's time for us to make a decision. Supporting the 3 metres, I do not support the idea that the other 3 metres need to be quarantined. Currently there is car parking spaces on there. If you go down and have a look, if there's a car in the car parking bay, I don't believe it creates any real danger in terms of those sight lines. As I said, the real issue is from traffic coming from the right-hand side, not sight lines as you'd be driving down the road and wanting to turn into Cornwall there. So I don't believe that there is a safety issue. The fact that there's a car park already in existence right up against that power pole there, I can't see why that use cannot be continued in this new plan. So I'd urge councillors to have this matter resolved tonight, support the 3 metre truncation, and then with a bit of luck and hopefully goodwill, we'll see the proponent move forward with developing their building. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Warnock. Thank you. Speaker against. Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We all got our piece of paper, our pink paper, advice from our legal, Dennis McLeod, and what really tipped me to stay with the recommendation is that SAT won't consider anything other than a 6x6 truncation, because here with the Independent Public Works and Engineers it's stated that it has to be a 6x6 truncation on the subject of the site at Cornwall Street intersection with Spencer Street is required to achieve the IPWEA specific outcomes. So there it is. So we have...
Yeah, take a seat please, Councillor Crick. What's your point of order?
I was concerned about the confidential paper being read from.
I think it's okay, Councillor McCleary, you can continue with your argument, bearing in mind that it is a confidential advice.
Thank you. It has been very clearly put to us by our executive that it is a ruling. It's not up to city councillors to change planning rules. We have absolutely no expertise in this area. We have to be guided by our engineers, and I would recommend that the councillors do not support this amendment. Thank you.
Speaker for the amendment. Councillor Hayward, just want to close on that amendment.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. Again, it's really up to us to make the decision. The point I've made is that the adjoining neighbour's building needs to be knocked down and demolished in order for this to be put in. There are no plans for that to happen. It could presumably be there for 30 years. I think it's an unfair and unreasonable expectation to put on the proponent. Thank you.
I'll put the amendment. All in favour, please indicate. Those against? Amendment's carried. The amendment therefore becomes part of the initial recommendation with clause or condition 24 amended as such. Thank you, Jamie. And if you go back and remind me who moved when you're ready. So Councillor Kelly moved, Councillor McCleary seconded. Are there speakers against?
Mr Mayor, I'd like to put an amendment to number 24.
Sure.
To reflect our staff's concerns about the area that concerned the sight line.
Okay, do you have some words there?
Well, I think the end bit is going to be an area, and I believe it was 6 metres by 6 metres, Mr Mayor. Is that correct? I have to ask for guidance of the staff just to get that figure correctly. And the correct term is B, and I'll ask for through you, the CEO can perhaps provide that wording so it is correct. The staff, I don't have the staff's wording at the moment, but I think we need to test that because it was a staff. So an area 6 by 6 be subject to, well, it is a caveat, isn't it? Mr Mayor, I asked the CEO if you could put through the CEO just to get that wording from the staff.
So basically you're wanting that 6 by 6 quarantine from development.
That's as was the
But we'll find something more technical to describ that process.
Yes, please, Mr Mayor. And then
so that's, Councillor Kelly's moving that amendment and we'll get some words there. Do you want to assist?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Do you want to, if I just read the words out that were in the original note sent out by staff, which was that no new development shall occur within a 6 metre by 6 metre sightline truncation area abutting the corner of Spencer Street and Cornwall Street intersection to accommodate a road truncation should it be required in the future. So what we have, Mr Mayor, is the seeding of a 3 metre truncation with a clause not allowing any development to occur within a 6 metre by 6 metre sightline truncation. Which I'll pass that over to the Minute Secretary.
If you go and talk to her and get it sorted before we deal with this. Just bear with me, councillors, we'll get the wording right, then I'll seek a seconder. You happy with that, Councillor Kelly? Can I have a seconder to that amendment? Sure.
Just through you, and hopefully the office might be able to explain this to us. If we go with this amendment that Councillor Kelly's proposing, is that not very similar to the original recommendation that was made by the officers and not actually a compromise position? I'm a little bit unclear.
Mr Acting CEO.
Through you, Mr Mayor, in terms of the seeding of land, that would be the 3 metre by 3 metre truncation that's been supported. The 6 metre by 6 metre truncation would just not allow any development within that area. Anything outside of the 3 metre by 3 metre truncation would remain in the ownership of the applicant, but there would be no development permitted in that zone.
Further question? We sweet? So we had Councillor Kelly move that amendment. Do you have that up there, Jamie? Just bear with me. Is there a seconder to that amendment? You're seconding it? You have a question, Councillor Brown?
Truncation of 3 by 3, would there be a setback from the truncation required as far as the building line goes?
Through Mr Mayor, the design drawings that have been submitted as part of the application don't have buildings within that truncation in that area. There was originally a trolley parking bay and a vehicle parking bay, and the officers are just making sure that the sight lines would be protected within that 6 metre by 6 metre area. So no, there is no built form as such in that area.
Councillor Kelly.
This is a matter again of compromise, and the staff, our very competent staff, have asked the proponent to consider this on the basis of safety. So we're not taking any land off the proponent at all. We're just saying to the proponent that that corner shouldn't have trucks, cars or anything else that may take away from the sight line. So it's a very simple a matter of what the staff have negotiated with the proponent. The proponent obviously is not agreeing with it for whatever reason, but it's something that we ought to test. We've gone halfway tonight on a 3 metre truncation, which is a legal seeding, if you like, of land to the road. And in all of the negotiation that the staff have undertaken with the proponent, they've stuck to the idea that if we're going to have a truncation and we're eventually going to have a different road set up, we've got to have a sight line that when vehicles approach, looking left, looking right, looking either way, they've got to have some safety. This is not about taking any land off the proponent. This is merely saying use the landscape, that area as low landscaping, attractive landscaping for that matter, so that we don't have vehicles that might park hard up against the road and take that sight line away, which obviously creates a safety issue. So this is an elegant solution to this. Our staff came up with it. Obviously there are some issues with the proponent, but it needs to be tested because this is the advice that we're getting from the professionals. So I urge councillors to vote for the amendment, and then we'll move on. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cleary. Speaker against, Councillor Hayward.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. This is certainly not an elegant solution at all. This is simply just going back to largely the outcome that we had at the beginning of the meeting. The proponent's made it quite clear that he won't accept this. Currently there are car parks in that space. Now I'm quite confused about the fact that they're building a new building now means that you can't park cars there when you can do it without any issue today. And I'm also confused about whether this is about sight lines, because what was proposed to us, the reason for the 6 metres was so that in the future, when the roundabout was built, that there would be enough space to facilitate the building of that roundabout. That roundabout cannot be built without the demolition of a neighbouring building that we have no control of, unless there's some plan that's going to come before us to compulsory acquire it, which I'm sure there isn't. So we're stuck in the same position. There are already vehicles parked in a car parking space. The proponent's plans do not have a building in that space. If next year there's some, the people over the road want to knock their building down, do something different, and there's an opportunity. Well, there's still an opportunity to negotiate to get that land and do what's required. In the meantime, they can use that bit of land for what it's being used for already, and that's to park cars on. I don't accept at all that there's any imminent threat, that there's any imminent safety issue on that corner caused by those vehicles being parked there. I think we need to, in good faith, vote against this proposal and this so that we can get back to what we had initially, and that is that we can go back to the proponent with a compromise solution that, with a bit of luck, keeps us out of SAT. What this does is puts us straight back in there and causes the city to spend a significant amount of money on a legal defence that we may or may not win. Thank you.
Speaker for the amendment. Councillor Kelly-Close, thank you.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I think Councillor Hayward is going halfway to nowhere here. He's been down there, like some of us have as well, walked past it. Yeah, currently there's a car park. There's a new development going in here. Every new development requires some other consideration and some foresight indeed to ensure that when you look at a site, you're not just sitting there and saying, oh, well, that's what it's like now, that's what it's going to be like forever. There's no foresight in that. Now, our staff in good faith have come up with good faith, professionally, have come to us and given us some advice. Obviously, the proponent's not happy with the sightline area, but the fact that there's cars parked there now has got nothing to do with the case whatsoever. What we're saying is in the future, there is an intersection there that is going to be developed and there's going to be more development. We're using a little bit of foresight, a little bit of intelligence about urban design and saying we're going to have an issue here. There may be an issue there already, but we're going to have an issue here, and this is our solution to it. It is an elegant solution. We're not taking any land off the people. We're just saying, please don't park vehicles in that spot because we can foresee some risk when that occurs and the sight lines are diminished. So I think that this solution is a good solution. It allows the development to proceed and it creates a better corner. As for the SAT, well, we've got advice. We've got advice from our professional staff and we've also got advice from our legal representatives. Far be it from me to be an expert, much the same as Councillor Hayward is not an expert in sight lines. But it seems to me that if you haven't got the skills to provide that judgment, you've got to listen to the people who do have the skills, and that's our professional staff and the lawyers. So I think in this case, we need to accept the amendment for what it is. It is a compromise, and then we move forward. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
I'll put the amendment. All in favour, please indicate. Those against? The amendment's lost. We return back to the substantive motion. Is there a speaker against? Do you want to write a reply? No. I'll put it all in favour. Those against? That's carried. Thank you very much. Thanks. Councillor Steck. Councillors, we have no further business. I declare this meeting closed at 6:39 p.m. I thank you very much for your consideration and thank you for putting your hand up to all the committees and congratulations again to Councillor McGrill.